I was hospitalized after a fall. My sister-in-law used the spare key to move into my bedroom, tossing my belongings into the garage. When I came home and saw her wearing my clothes, I smiled and said the locksmith would be there in 10 minutes because I'm not proud of how long I let people walk over me, especially family. I guess I kept thinking that being generous would mean something, that it would come back around. But it doesn't. Not always. Sometimes, it just teaches people that your boundaries don't matter. I'm 47. I live in Jacksonville, Florida, in the house I grew up in. It's nothing fancy, 3 bedrooms, older floors, but it's mine. I took care of my mother here until she passed 3 years ago. After that, the house felt empty. Quiet. So when my younger brother Dan asked if he and his wife Sheila could stay in the guest house for a few months, I said yes without thinking too much about it. That was 8 months ago. Dan had lost his job again. Sheila said they were saving for renovations on a condo they'd bought, but I knew the truth. They were broke. Still, I told them they could use the guest house rent-free. I even gave them a key to the main house, in case they needed laundry or something. I didn't like Sheila. Never really did. She's loud, opinionated, always got something snarky to say about how I live. Still using powder detergent? That's vintage. Or, you should really get a new wardrobe, you're not 50 yet. Stuff like that. Death by 1,000 little jabs.
Done?
He's a follower. Always has been. Growing up, I protected him. Took beatings for him from our dad. Paid his car insurance when he got his license. I wanted to believe he'd have my back one day. Turns out I was wrong. 2 months ago, I tripped on a loose rug at the top of the stairs. I remember the crack of my ankle before I even hit the bottom. I blacked out. When I came to, I was in the ER with a broken ankle, cracked ribs, and a concussion. They kept me for 10 days because I developed a minor internal bleed. I called Dan on the 3rd day. He sounded irritated, like I'd ruined his plans. He came by once, dropped off a get-well bag with cheap lotion and a word search book. Didn't even stay 15 minutes. No one else came. I live alone. No husband. No kids. Friends dropped off food, but that was it. When I was finally discharged, I asked a coworker to pick me up. I hadn't heard from Dan in days. I figured he'd left me a meal or something. What I didn't expect was to find my garage door jammed and a mountain of black trash bags visible through the side window. I got through the front door with my keys. The second I stepped inside, I knew something was wrong. The house smelled different, like Sheila's overpowering floral shampoo. There were different shoes by the door. And then I saw her. Sheila. In my bedroom.
Sitting on my bed.
Wearing my robe. I just stood there. Limping. Silent. She looked up at me like I was the one intruding.
Oh.
You're back early, she said, like she'd been inconvenienced. I looked around. My jewelry box was gone. My dresser drawers emptied. My framed photo of Mom, gone. My clothes? Dumped into garbage bags and pushed into the garage like I was some tenant being evicted. I didn't even raise my voice. I said, "Where's Dan?" "He's running errands," she said, not looking up from her phone. "We figured you'd be at rehab longer." I nodded. Then I said, "The locksmith will be here in 10 minutes." She blinked, laughed like I was joking. I wasn't, because I'd already made the call in the car when I saw the trash bags in the garage. I'd told the locksmith to meet me at the house. He was pulling up the driveway right then. I walked past her, picked up my mother's framed picture from the floor, and didn't say another word. Not yet. Because this wasn't going to be a fight. This was going to be something bigger. The locksmith pulled into the driveway, and I met him at the door without a word to Sheila. I watched her through the window. She was pacing now, robe clutched around her, phone glued to her ear. Dan pulled up minutes later, stepping out of his car like nothing was wrong. "Hey, what's going on?" he asked, acting confused, like he hadn't played a part in this. I looked him dead in the eye. "You let her move into my room while I was in the hospital." He scratched his head. "It was just temporary. You were gone for weeks, and she needed the space." Needed the space. I said. My voice cracked. "It's my house, Dan." He shrugged. "You've got plenty of room." It's not like we were throwing your stuff out. She threw my mother's things in the garage, I said. She was wearing my robe when I walked in. That shut him up for a second. But then he went back to his usual script. You're overreacting.
No paleri.
No remorse. Just gaslighting. The locksmith changed the locks on both the front door and the garage access. I handed Dan a box. You've got until the end of the day to move your things out of the guest house. I already called a tow company to remove your car from the driveway if it's still here by morning. You're kicking us out? He said, eyes wide. Seriously? You chose this, I said. The second she stepped into my bedroom, Sheila was back at the door, yelling now. You can't do this. We're family. I turned to her. Family doesn't take over someone's home while they're in a hospital bed. Family doesn't dump someone's life into garbage bags. You too made your choice. I'm making mine. They didn't leave quietly. Sheila slammed doors.
Dan Beckett.
Even had the nerve to say, Mom wouldn't want this. That stopped me cold. No, I said. Mom would be ashamed of what you've become. By nightfall, they were gone. Or so I thought. The next morning, I walked out to find someone had keyed my car. Deep, angry slashes across both sides. A nail in the front tire. The word bitch scratched into the driver door. I didn't have proof, but I didn't need it. I called the police. Filed a report. Installed cameras that afternoon. Changed all the codes, passwords, security settings, everything. But that wasn't the end. 2 weeks later, I got a notice from the county about a noise complaint filed against me. Then a call from my HOA saying I'd been reported for excessive trash and illegal subletting. All lies. I checked the source of the complaints. Dan and Sheila. They weren't just angry. They wanted to ruin me. They wanted me to regret throwing them out. And for a brief moment I did. Not because I thought I was wrong, but because I realized how far they were willing to go. They weren't done. Not by a long shot. But neither was I. 3 weeks after I kicked them out, I got a certified letter from a law office. Dan and Sheila were suing me. According to the papers, they were claiming tenant rights, saying I'd illegally evicted them without notice, that they had been paying in-kind rent by helping maintain the property, and that I'd stolen Sheila's personal belongings during the lockout. It was total fiction. But the fact that they found a lawyer willing to take it shook me. I went through every message, every email. I pulled up bank statements. They hadn't paid a single bill. No rent, no utilities, no shared groceries. Nothing. The only thing they ever contributed was using up my hot water and Wi-Fi. But here's the twist. They filed the lawsuit in small claims court and set the court date for 3 weeks out, which meant I had to start gathering evidence.
Fast.
I spent hours digging through photos, text threads, even a Ring cam video where Sheila complained about living rent-free in this dump. I printed everything, put it in a binder. I was determined not to let them win. Then another twist hit me. My boss pulled me into her office one morning. HR had gotten an anonymous complaint accusing me of misusing family medical leave and operating an illegal rental unit from my home. It triggered a full review. I had to sit through meetings, submit documentation, even provide doctor's notes and photos of my injuries. You can guess who sent the complaint. The timing lined up perfectly with the lawsuit. Dan and Sheila weren't just trying to win money. They wanted to ruin my job, my name, my life. I was this close to breaking. But then something happened I didn't expect. A woman named Clarissa, an old friend of mine who used to work with Sheila, called me out of the blue. Hey, she said, you should know. Sheila's been running her mouth about you. She told people you were in a psych ward, not the hospital. I froze. Clarissa sent me screenshots, group texts, social media comments. Sheila had told a whole network of people I'd had a breakdown. She even told someone I'd thrown her out onto the street while pregnant. Pregnant? No one had mentioned that before. And it wasn't true. Or so I thought. 2 days later, Dan posted a photo of a positive pregnancy test on Facebook with a caption that said, "Starting fresh. Baby Smith coming soon. Hard times show you who your real family is." I stared at that post for 10 minutes. This wasn't about housing. This wasn't about rent. This was about control, reputation, making sure that if they couldn't have my home, they'd burn down every part of my life they could reach. But I wasn't going to let them. I called my lawyer the next morning and said, I want to go beyond defending myself. I want to fight back. And that's when the real revenge began. The lawyer I hired, real sharp guy, late 50s, used to be a prosecutor, sat across from me with a thick folder open. They're bluffing, he said. But we're going to hit back so hard they'll wish they stayed quiet. We didn't just prep for small claims. He helped me file a counterclaim for damages, property loss, defamation, and emotional distress. It wasn't about the money. It was about showing Dan and Sheila I wasn't the woman they remembered. I wasn't quiet anymore. I wasn't soft. I was done playing the good sister. We subpoenaed Sheila's phone records and social media activity since she'd made her lies public. Screenshots showed dozens of posts mocking me, some even joking about moving up in the world after kicking me out of my own home. One post said, "She's lucky I didn't sell her ugly clothes on eBay." Turns out she had. We found multiple listings online with my name still visible on the clothing tags in the photos. She'd used her real seller account, tied to an email with her name on it. We also subpoenaed the HOA complaints and traced them back to Dan's IP address. All of them. The fake reports about noise, trash, illegal rentals. The paper trail was perfect. But what really changed the game was the hospital records. I got a full summary from my doctors showing the extent of my injuries and the time I was unconscious, proving I couldn't have given permission for anyone to move into my room or touch my belongings. I added that to the binder. Every lie they'd told was unraveling, piece by piece. Still, Sheila kept running her mouth. She tried to get sympathy from friends, told people I was jealous of her pregnancy, said I was bitter because I was single and childless. It got around, and fast. Some people believed her. I lost a few mutual friends, got weird looks at the grocery store. I heard whispers in church. That part hurt more than I expected. But it also made me more focused, more cold. Because now it wasn't just about me, it was about taking back the dignity they tried to rip away. The day of court came. Small, windowless courtroom. Dan showed up in a suit 2 sizes too big. Sheila wore white, like she was going to a baby shower, not a lawsuit. Her smug smile didn't last long. My lawyer laid out everything. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He showed the judge the eBay listings, the fake complaints, the photos of Sheila wearing my robe sitting on my bed while I was still in the hospital. The courtroom went silent when he read her social media post out loud. Not my house, but definitely my rules, LOL. Dan kept shifting in his seat. Sheila looked like she wanted to sink into the floor. The judge asked if they had proof of rent or written permission to live in the main house. They didn't. They hadn't even brought documents. Just a sob story and an empty claim. It was brutal. But I wasn't done. Because revenge doesn't stop at proving them wrong. It has to cost them. That part was still coming. When the judge ruled in my favor, it wasn't just a legal win. It felt like I could breathe again. Dan and Sheila's case was dismissed with prejudice. That meant they couldn't refile. The judge even reprimanded them for wasting the court's time and hinted at possible sanctions if they kept up the harassment. But the best part? My counterclaim stood. Sheila turned pale when she realized I was going after her for real damages. Not just petty stuff, real consequences. I sued for loss of personal property defamation based on her social media lies, emotional distress backed by a therapist's statement, and my hospital records harassment via the HOA and workplace complaints. We reached a settlement before trial. Her lawyer convinced them to settle once the eBay proof came in. Sheila had to pay damages totaling $12,500. They couldn't afford it. I knew that. I didn't care. They sold the car. And that smug Facebook post about the baby?
Turned out to be a lie.
Clarissa called me again weeks later. Sheila had faked the pregnancy for sympathy. The test she posted was an old photo, probably pulled from the internet. Friends started pulling away from her once the truth came out. Even her own sister blocked her. I didn't have to say a word. She burned herself down.
Dan lost his next job, too.
Word travels fast in our town. His new boss saw the lawsuit online, public record, and let him go quietly after 3 weeks. Turns out, when you try to ruin your own sister's life and get caught, people don't trust you with much. But I wasn't done. I donated Sheila's eBay profits to a women's shelter, sent her the receipt. Then I filed a restraining order. The judge granted it without hesitation. They're not allowed within 300 feet of my house or my workplace. The locks are changed. Cameras are everywhere. And for the first time in years, my home feels safe again. Quiet.
Meaning?
Dan texted me once, months later. Said he regretted how things turned out. I didn't respond. There's no coming back from what they did. And that robe she wore? I burned it. Not out of anger. Just closure. Because revenge doesn't always look like shouting. Sometimes it looks like silence. Paper trails.
Courtrooms.
Watching people tear themselves down while you rebuild stronger. They tried to steal my home, my peace, and my name. Now they've got none of it. And I've got everything back. Plus interest.